All right. My name is Hayla Alawi, and on behalf of Atmosphere Press, I am pleased to welcome you to today's poetry reading. Today, we will hear from R.L. Farr reading from Become Echo, released February 1st, 2023. Dre Hill reading from Crossroads, released February 3rd, 2023. Juanet Martinez reading from What She Knows, released March 3rd, 2023. And Lucie Chou reading from Convivial Communiverse, released March 21st, 2023. All four poets' books can be purchased both from online retailers and from select bookstores. And of course, the books can be ordered on Atmosphere Press's website at atmospherepress.com/books. Please see the links in the chat as well. At the end of today's event, we will have time for audience questions. So during the readings, if you have a question for any of our poets, go ahead and type it in the chat and I'll make sure it gets asked. And then during the actual reading itself, please stay muted to keep extraneous sound at a minimum. Of course, you can always feel free to use the chat for any praise and comments. And one last note, we at Atmosphere Press appreciate your support today and always. If you have a manuscript of your own, we'd love to read it, so feel free to submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting Robin, Dre, Juanet, and Lucie today. Let's start off with our first reader, who is R.L. Farr. Robin, poet and essayist, writes from her home in Pennsylvania, where she lives with her husband and cat. She is a founder and co-editor of River Heron Review, an online poetry journal. Her work has appeared in anthologies and journals including Sky Island Journal, Atlanta Review, Two River View, and Sanskrit Magazine. She is the recipient of the 2018 Main Street Poetry Award. In her first book, Become Echo, Robin takes us through the core and chaos of conflicting emotions wrought by the never quite certain dissolution of a difficult relationship to its surprising conclusion. And with that, Robin, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Hayla, so much. And a big thank you to Atmosphere Press for organizing this. And I'm so happy to be here with the other esteemed poets from Atmosphere Press as well. I'm going to read 4 poems. And the first one is A Dream of Foxes. It's not your voice I hear while driving north through the mountains. It's the wind ringing through outcroppings of glacial rock. A hiss of radio static cuts in. Even the light conspires. See the skies, how they scowl, distant, heavy. I consider the mountain foxes, born to bleakness, burrowed in a hollow between heaves of shale. Hollow as the place at the base of your throat, vulnerable, where words form. Sounds rise from the shifting slabs, their ponderous weight groans. Stones cast conjure meaning. I'm not indifferent to omen and know my place in the hierarchy of fortune. You stand on the step of the cabin with news, wait for steep roads to empty at your feet. No, you tell me, the fox has died. The pup's gone to the hawks. Thank you. The second poem is called Fade. And this has a very domestic setting. It's within the kitchen of someone's home and just sort of involves the day-to-day events that take place between people early in the morning. Fade. Your kitchen in gray hesitant light, coffee, French bread, goat cheese, served mostly on blue unmatched china. Breakfast is simple as always. We eat quietly. The hiss of the espresso pot intersects careful conversation. The local radio station plays a rebroadcast of energetic klezmer music, which you heard Tuesday night in an auditorium of mostly older Jews. A warm feeling of community, you say. A stack of New Yorker magazine months of them, piled up on the bench next to me. You wonder whether to read the poems. We almost touch, both of us reaching for the knife. I feel the heat of your arm. The moment waits, wanting something more, but it passes like the morning sun, all potential. It blooms into the day, becomes cloudy and uncertain. The third poem is called Disproving Physics, Buzzards Bay. And actually, I used this as a jumping off point for a creative nonfiction piece that I wrote that had to do with relationships and looking through the lens of physics, looking through the lens of biology, and looking through the lens of, I can't remember, a third science. So it was sort of a different perspective. But this one is Disproving Physics, Buzzards Bay. Then there was the child's dress caught by a rush of wind billowing, spinnaker of blown cotton, bright summer cloth against blue surrounding sky. The fisherman's line cast trawls the bay, boat tips into faint waves troughs. Rise and fall of a catching tide, sheer of wind, forces, formulas that govern. We lie among rocks on the strewn shore. Like them, we are inert, observant only. Anchored to a turning earth, how the day pinwheels pictures, snaps one scene, then another. Life appears as though captured image, luminous in a camera's viewfinder, a photographic array, the white light fractures prismatic, the colors of living nailed to the sky, inaccessible. We are unbound to laws of matter, remain unmoved by the velocity of life, the impact of bodies coming together, the pull of attraction. We are bodies honed by erosion, inured to acceleration of time. Like particles accrete to stars, we bind ourselves to loss. And you may have noticed that the first three poems are really kind of sad, breaking up types of poems, I suppose. But the last poem I'm reading ends more on an up note, and that's the one I'd like to leave with, called Obeyed. The day begins the way of winter darkness, the way of hollow sounds, distance, empty air. I seek you in gardens of a past summer where you will say, write my body, write the void around my chair at breakfast, sink into the arms of longing. Write the winter air and wrap your body with it, and I will do so. It is your voice that obliges me. Obligo, obligare, to bind, bind up. I am bound to write into grief, to learn the ways of loss, to build a roof over your being and make a home for it among my misplaced things. The sun does not wake me with its light, but there is portent in its promise. This chrysalis of morning, take it, it is yours. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
Sure.
I just wanted to comment that line, the second to last poem you read, we bind ourselves to loss. I feel like if that's anything to go off of for this creative nonfiction project, I mean, it's a great line. And I think that's indicative of the work we can find and become Echo.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So reading next tonight is Dre Hill. Dre is an artist, storyteller, and apple juice enthusiast from Fort Worth, Texas. He graduated from Drury University in 2021 with his BA in animation and writing, where he reignited his childhood passion for the written word. He has his many English professors to thank for that. He published his first two chapbooks, I Love You Means Nothing through Alien Buddha Press and Melanin, Black through Gut Slut Press in 2022. When not creating, Dre is often snuggling with his puppy, Jet, while watching Marvel movies. Find Dre at Dre Hill Art on all platforms. His website is drehillart.com. This collection, Crossroads, is Dre Hill's journey of discovery, identity, and sense of self. Dre is formed and remade, lost and then found, a wayward soul in search of both the past and the future. So let's hear it now from Dre. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you guys for being here. And of course, to Atmosphere for hosting this. I want to take the time to read a little bit from each of the sections from the book. So just a quick handful of poems that kind of detail some of the intersections of Crossroads and what that's about. So we're going to start in the beginning section, in Innocence, with Mr. Stick, Wishbone. My first real friend was Mr. Stick. It was an imaginary friend with a very real body, one that I could never lose. He was shaped like a wishbone. Clearly he was lucky or magical. I was convinced that he had to be. He carried me from realm to realm, all the while acting as a guide. His face forever a friendly, pudgy smile, penciled in with permanent marker. His eyes forever unblinking, stamped into his face like tiny black holes. The same kind we would summon to travel between worlds until Mom called out dinner time and he had to release me to her care while he napped in the comfort of my room. This next one is called A Pillow Named Scooby-Doo. My first dog was a pillow named Scooby-Doo. His fur was non-existent. His features were all flat. My head laid on top of him. It often felt like I shattered his back. Yet every day there he would lay at the head of my bed, where I would snuggle my covers and sleep like the dead. His cushion brought me comfort. With his tail coiled on my chest, his shriek brings me serenity, as at last I get my rest. We're gonna get one more out of this section. This one is called Deep End. 1, 2, 3. I hold my breath. I wait silently. The surface is still, a clean, crisp edge. 1, 2, 3. I sit in the deep end, letting my mind wander, watching my thoughts expand. I am the calm pool. 1, 2, 3. I am the deep end, absorbing the sun, prolonging my days, changing the seasons. 1, 2, 3. We're going to flip to the section in Mind, and we're going to read 2 from this section. This first one is called Charmed. You have such good energy. They're intoxicated, inundated with a chemical connection, or so they perceive, because perception is everything. So they see charisma in place of my charms. They feel good vibes as the incantations roll off my tongue. They entrench themselves in my presence as if it were not divinely ordained. Their steps are ordered, their thoughts are planted, their eyes are fooled by illusion, and they perceive it without hesitation, without bated breath or batted eye. This is my witchcraft, to know people, to have people know of me and love me. The next one is going to be Assurance. Swallowed by the past, drowning in right now, darkness closing fast, spirit giving out. Mama said to pray. Think that's all she knows. Slowly lose my way. That's just how it goes. Eyes are growing dry. Time just slips away. Almost time to fly. Night turns into day. Showed me how to cope. Going with the flow. Living off new hope. Not quite time to go. And then I will jump to the end section here, which is in identity. And I'll read a couple from that, and then we will call it an evening. Actually, that's not in identity. My bad. That's in expression. Ha ha ha. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. This first one is called Art Machine. You are a machine, a body with bones made of gears, with a mind for creating work without ceasing or rest. You are a machine made for weaving the old into new, and the tangible and the intangible into something that is not only felt, but is also perceived and heard. You are a machine made from failed projects and soiled dreams, running on the tears of yesterday and the hopes of tomorrow. You are an incredible art machine forevermore. This next one is called The Cult of Creation. I know all too well the cult of creation. I've knelt in their temple and prayed to their God. I've bathed in their sacred waters, born again to start anew. I've preached their gospel to both saints and sinners. I surrendered my tithes to buy new crayons and paints. I've sat with the moon, crying in the dark. I beat and bruised my body, all for the sake of art. I know all too well the cult of creation and the lies they spread, with demons in your head and a workstation as a bed. And then the last one that I will read will be Starving Artist. This is a note to self, a memorandum, a contractual obligation to remember what it was like being up all night, worrying about perceptions of your work and not your needs or your fiscal responsibilities, choosing to starve both your stomach and wallet in pursuit of your dreams or childish things. This is a letter to my alternative history or parallel present to cultivate your craft and watch the way you spend your time and money so that you are not the next great household name with a wave of fame and 2 pennies in your bank account to show for it. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Dre. I really liked that poem, with the 1, 2, 3 repetition. I felt just like you said in that poem that I was the calm pool. I think that was such a great use of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So now we'll be hearing from Juanet Martinez. Juanet is New England born and raised and currently makes her home in fickle-weathered, earthy Ohio with her daughter and their always hungry cat, Luna. She is passionate about sharing her truth and encouraging others to do the same and living a life outside of boxes, comfort zones, and labels. You can find her working on her next poetry book, powerlifting and drinking way too many iced mocha coffees while questioning if aliens are real or poking fun at being a millennial entering her mid-30s. She writes so readers know they are not alone in the grand scheme of things, and so her daughter knows that pain and negative emotions can be turned into inspiration and art for an individual's greater good. You can follow her on Instagram at Less Words, More Writing. In What She Knows, silence is broken surrounding loving someone with addiction and what it means to be on a journey of recovery from codependency, instability, and being fear-minded, to thriving in one's truth, finding grace in the hard moments, gratitude in the good, and breaking free of a cage we never meant to craft. Let's hear more now from Juanet herself. Oh, Juanet, I think you might still be muted.
Okay, let's try that again. Hi, guys, and thank you, Atmosphere Press, for hosting this. I am so honored to be a part of this program with these authors, and sharing vulnerability through poetry is an artist's life. That's just what we do sometimes. So I chose 9 poems. I wrote this book in 3 parts. The first part is break, and these go in order based off of growth. So the first poem I'm going to read is called The First Man I Loved. I wanted to spend my life with a man who did not know how to love himself, but found sanctuary at the bottom of a bottle, his self-love daunted by a lack of forgiveness for himself. This next one is called Love for an Alcoholic. I can't make you sober. I can't make you sober. I can't make you sober. I once handed you armor and then gave you my own. With tormented hands, you drug us both down. So I rebuilt myself with the rocks and the mud I had been pushed in, had made a home from. I polish away my new flesh. It hardens my own. I am stronger. I can't make you sober. And then I realize I cannot make you sober. This third one is a very personal one that I wrote scream crying on my bed. It's called I Sit With Her. Sometimes when depression creeps in, I sit with her instead of pushing onward. We are old friends. She often cries with me. I don't think she wants to be here either. I've learned while embracing my darkness, she is just as scared as I am. That's why she comes back when I push her away. She's telling me to slow down. She's telling me to rest. I hate her. But when she is here, I try to learn from her so I can be better for tomorrow and the day after, for however long it takes. See? So this next one is in the second part. It's called The Healing. This one is called Memories. Sometimes I remember the good. It comes in waves. I don't quite drown, but I don't quite swim. I gasp between crests, water filling my lungs. I'm suffocating. I always just manage to catch my breath before having it taken from me again. This next one is called My Garden. I am learning to love the edges of nasty comments. They are compost for the garden growing in my mind. Naysayer nutrients make my earth rich. I water with hope and self-love, and with a little strife, things grow in a way I never thought they could. This one is called Growth. I am not the girl you are looking for, the one devoured by society. I fear you do not know this new me, the one who sank in the mud onto her knees, who turned her kneecaps into prayer beds and worshipped herself for once. The one who, despite the red sky and cold rain, found a new way to sing. No, you do not know this new me. My pieces now fit differently. This one is one of my favorites. This one I actually wrote while I was watching my daughter play in my backyard. It's called The Girl at the Bottom of My Feet. There's a girl who lives at the bottom of my feet that enjoys each blade of grass, the sunshine on her heels, dirt between her toes, and air against her shins. It travels to the backs of her knees, always pushing her along. There's a girl who lives at the bottom of my feet who never gives up, no matter what life tells her. No matter how many rocks her feet may find or thorns in the grass where she runs, all that matters is that she is still running. I have 2 left. This next one is called Thunderstorm. I need a thunderstorm, my feet in the grass, rain drumming, mind screaming as my lungs inhale and cry out to the clouds. I need nature to take back what man has given me. Let me lay on the earth while the rain drowns what is left of what does not make me whole. And this last one is from the 3rd section, which is called She is Fire. It is called You Are Starlight. When the illusion of order fails, she will remember she is made of starlight. Fragments of dreams formed in a human soul, forced down by gravity and led by a beating heart. When words fail and the sun bids farewell for the night to ease in, nothing will feel more familiar than the dark sky's gaze. As dusk grows deeper and the air calmer, the stars will energize her internal light. She will dance, and everywhere her feet touch, a glimmer of hope for the world. With each barefooted movement, the ground will weep, for she has come home. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanet. Such raw emotion really bleeds through your words. I think everyone here can really feel that as you were reading, especially as you were reading as the poet. So thank you really for sharing that with us and being vulnerable with that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Our final reader for today is Lucie Chou. Lucie is an eco-poet and natural history aficionado. She writes poetry that endeavors to draw from the Romantic tradition to envision the voices and worldings of non-human living beings. She has published in the Entropy magazine and the Black Earth Institute blog. Residing in mainland China with her beloved houseplants and wildflowers, plus their insect and avian paramours, she studies Emily Dickinson, philosophies and artworks about plant being, contemporary poetry, and Richard Powers' eco-novels when not taking walks among feral creatures or drafting poems on foot. Synthesizing air of a romantic imagination, moisture of a Victorian naturalist's empathic curiosity, and essential minerals of an innovative eco-poetic, Convivial Communiverse respires like a plant that worlds its own world, exemplifying lessons of love and ethical existence. During Lucie's reading today, I will be screen sharing her poems so you can follow along with the text as she reads. And with that, Lucie, the virtual podium is yours.
Well, before I'm going to read the poems Halo will be screen sharing with you, I will start with something special. Because I envision this book as a convivial communiverse, or a universe where all beings can communicate and engage in communion. And I also see this book as giant organism like a tree, where all the poems are like individual branches and twigs, and the overall organizing principle functions as the trunk or the bough of the tree. So I use not a table of contents, but sort of a cento or a collage poem to organize all the individual pieces in this book, where I take one line from every poem to compose collage poem or a cento, which I call a cento song lines. And this is an idea I took from a poetic inventory of Saguaro National Park organized by the University of Arizona Poetry Center, for which I will have to offer my sincere thanks. So I will start by reading a little section from the cento itself. Actually, the book is divided into 6 sections, and I'm going to read the cento for the first. Early waking Glorio peers from vibrant spectra of prismatic generations. Rosary then fiery and empyrean as azure as the Aegean in the bower of heavenward arms, autumn's refreshed mystery, innovative beyond anything human preaches. You are your God, hailing to no name, open to jay-hued day, to incandesce spitfire from 1,000 suns, outblazing sacrament. You swing insouciantly higher and higher, synthesize photons in multiplicitous everythings, bright, beady yellow eyes. I'm going to read 2 poems from the first section. The first is Monofoil, Kindonia uniflora. This is actually critically endangered plant species you can find in the Qingling Mountains in central China. It has delicate and charming experience, a charming appearance, but it's not actually a very well-known species. So I'm assuming the voice of this little herbal plant here. I am a weed hailing to no name, grown from stray seed, I have no fame. Only likenesses, aquilegia, wood anemones, daucus carota. They are like me when leafy only, but never more come their famed flowers. Florid prestige, pressures, constraints, like genteel siege laid to their brains. I'm free to dawdle Byzantinely with thread and needle and filigree to sew my foliage low by slim lobe, scallop the selvage nimbly as a nib. So I'll be gruff, slight, drab, and poor, but wondrous enough not to bore. And it's futile for flower guides to state a style my life abides. The second poem is called Vernal Bulbs. Daffodils, crocuses, hyacinth, trilliums, tulips, coinodoxas, every March woozes, lithe, blithe, luminous juices from the liquefying linctus of primavera's avid albescent skies to incandesce your bulged bulbs, your flammable hearts, crammed with a crude translucent lard of sweet rage in wintry coverage. You kindle kaleidoscopic flickering flames of pale gold, of sea fog gray, of tulip purple, of lacustrine blue, of bleeding crimson, of intense white. Cariad, cordial heart arsonists, bulbous radicals, your plotting roots plot all year beneath this sylvan plot only to light up only once. Your courageous, outrageous, colorful, fragrant conflagration to consecrate your loved vernal wood, then strew embers of heart's mayhems, testimonial emblems, and go again under cover, to recover, to remember your radical act, your emotion, an anoract, a fiery go aground to resurrect. I'm jumping to the second section where I'm engaging with the cycle of the 4 seasons. Cloud Lauds is a poem for the height of midsummer. Praise vicissitudes in whimsical skies, praise looming nephological shapes, praise bright clouds in livid, vapors condensed and rare, praise sky bodies, praise souls, praise water inky shades, lightish cerulean openings, praise slight sojourners, praise light that augurs rain, praise moist mossy smells that do not melt, praise the ratio of plumbeous to white, praise the ratio of white to sapphire, high, hunkering, hoary, hyaline, hyacinth, praise the widening beam, this expanding Mediterranean. Startling shadow trees erupting on concrete, all things becomingly accepting sun's gleam. Praise somber intervals, praise bluey waters shutting eyes, black puffy eyes on the brink of weeping death. Some flutter open, some close for rest. Praise myriad warm, capable eyes waking this palimpsest. The next poem I'll read is a haiku for autumn. First, frosted morn. A late violet crops up incredulously, blued, slender with chill. I'll read the concluding poem of this section, Song Without Words. The supreme song is without words, only a silhouette against silence, a presence, an emergence. Pebbles strewn by a snail's silver slime are track records of his treachery to rhyme. All pink tongues in the mouth of a thistle are sculpted by the slow circadian chisel. Led by the moon's cyclical steps, the longeve ocean flows and ebbs. The clover congregation chant white every May, clapping triplet hands a beat per day. The morning glory and the moonflower march forth each at her due hour. Words inked on the page, vibrations etched on tape. No, song is time growing inside a living shape. This next poem is from the third section, A Feeling of Felis Felix. It's for a cat. As if out of pure faith, you appear, sitting on your hind legs, tail motionless, my fuscuous feline friend, with a pair of bright brown strands running down both sides of your spine, and the orulent mullion between the circular celadon panes of your soul. You stretch toward me with the precise paw work of a master Eugenie, and lower your body by my feet. I fondle your fur like a great mud gold soaked silky African river. From the muscular bed beneath the smooth strands, my stone cold hand is tingled with heat. You are rightly a sun god. Then you lift your forepaws and tuck them prettily under your prone body. A yard away from strewn seeds of cat feed, brown like roasted grains of wheat. Excluding the ears alert with bristles, you are a beautifully baked bread loaf left on the kitchen board, gloriously glutting the furry growth of glucose-eating golden mold. Oh, you are never cold. I'll conclude by reading a poem from the fourth section. The poem is first published by the Black Earth Institute blog, for which publication I will be eternally thankful. Heard at the vegetal time of dark blue dawning. There are so many plants inside me. My womb hides a blue translucent wood. All my mosses and lichens, ferns and flowers, trees, tremble in a deep well of water. Their breaths are silent, not quiescent. I sense their worried susurrus. I go to them in sleep. There I become patted into pleated petals. I have a worm brain and swim home to the sachet and seal of a furrowed flower. There I drown into ancient afterlife as embryonic arboreal dolphin, delving in and out of delphiniums. Into my dream, pollen murmurs the tale of the first floating blue leaf, how it began to breathe. my withered wound, weak red wreath, blue bacteria, blue mold, bluettes, blue flax, the blue-green bat line. The blue matrix of green memory is not made up by, but maketh me. I wish to heal her grief. Life's liquid lapis lazuli, the azure action, the leaf. I live inside worlds of so many plants that grieve. Learn to live those griefs. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lucie. I think that it was so wonderful to be able to see those poems as you were reading them, because there's so much wonderful wordplay and just language there that we could really absorb. So thank you really for sharing with us. At this time, we have about 15 minutes for our audience Q&A. So for anyone in the audience, if you have a question for one or more of our poets, go ahead and type that in the chat and I'll make sure it gets asked. We have already received our first question. This is one for Juanet. The asker is wondering, I was wondering about the repetition of I cannot make you sober and how you hit on that form. Is it the speaker of the poem trying to convince herself, or is there something else going on there?
Oh boy, that's a good one. Well, when I wrote it, I was actually, my ex-husband had just relapsed and I was in therapy, and I remember I said to my therapist, I can't make him sober. And it turned into a repetitive for myself personally to remind myself consistently that the only thing I can control is myself. And, you know, they say you repeat action, it turns into a habit. That is what that poem basically represents. So yes, it is more so of the person in the situation reminding themselves, you know, that they can't make this person sober. And at the beginning of the poem, it starts as such. And then as the poem continues, you can see it starting to really hit home until the last line of, I cannot make you sober, thus admitting to themselves that I can't make this person sober. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I think having that insight from you, that's a really good perspective to have on it, even outside of the poem like that. So thank you. Yeah, we have a question for all four of you. The question is, did you start your collections with a theme in mind, or did a theme coalesce once you had already begun writing and putting the poems together? So since this is all four of you, we can kind of go down one by one. Maybe Robin, if you wanted to start us off with this one.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'd been writing poetry for about 15 years before I decided to put a collection together. So I never had a theme in mind while I was writing. I just had a large pile of poems, which I then taped along the walls of a spare bedroom and started looking for themes and found that certain themes did emerge. And then I just took the one theme and then started pulling the poems off the wall that fit the theme and then went from there. But I think if I were to do another book, I would start with a theme in mind and kind of write to that theme, hopefully.
I can definitely relate to the idea of having a bunch of cards or different snippets from a bigger work all around and figuring out how to piece them together. Dre, how about you? Is there, did you come into the collection with the theme already in mind, or did something coalesce later?
Yeah, so Crossroads was actually a very, how it came together was a very interesting experience because it was actually the first book that I wrote. And I wrote it fresh out of college, trying to like get my bearings, to get my sense of the world as I was transitioning into adulthood and everything. And so it really started with me just writing, kind of similar to Robin. I was just writing, but as I continued to write, things kind of started to converge. And so I started to get those themes. I was like, okay, I can see this working together in a collection. So by the time that I actually put the first version of the manuscript together, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to write this book, and it's going to be about growing up and navigating identity and all of those different intersections and what that looks and feels like.
Yeah, I think having that organic process to it, I think can really create a very authentic collection that has that through line like that. So it definitely makes sense. Juanet, what about you? It sounds, maybe that this was something that had started, the theme was in mind ahead of time, but correct me if I'm wrong or expand on that for us.
Actually, much like Dre and Robin, I did not have a theme in mind. This very much, my best friend back home from Connecticut had actually gotten me a hardback notebook, and I had saved it. Most writers do, and I was not touching it because it was the notebook. It had to be just right. And one day I just started writing. I was so angry, and I just had all these words, and I just threw them in the notebook, and then that entire notebook got filled. And that's kind of how this compilation came to be. It was mostly I was writing to get everything I was feeling out because I felt trapped, and like there was no way I could get everything inside of me out proper. And that's kind of how that transpired. And then one day, after kicking my now ex-husband out, I went, you know what? I don't want to feel like this. And I guarantee there's probably other people that exist that don't want to feel like this either. And thus, there's the book.
Yeah, I think that journal was really waiting for this moment and for you to have this moment with it. So definitely, thank you for sharing that. Lucie, closing us out on this particular question, if you came into this collection with the theme already in mind, or did that come later as you were already writing?
It was interesting because I put this book together during the pandemic, and I was under really serious lockdown, and everything around me was like a sort of a soundproof chamber. And that was why I so loved the cover that the Atmosphere Press team did for my book here. You can see that it's a wall kind of overrun with ivy vines, and that sort of embodies how I was feeling during that time, because I was feeling just left alone, shut up behind something that's really tight and confining, but also there is a hint of hope that might be penetrating through the wall, or just something living, life, full of life at both sides of the wall. And it was that feeling, something very vague but powerful, that was driving me to just sit with myself and sift through all the individual poems I have been writing, plus ecology and our relationship with other living beings is a theme that has obsessed me for pretty much since I have been writing and just engaging with our world. And this was just how I came to put this together, not intentionally, by just stating to the world, oh, I'm going to write a book about ecology, or I'm going to put together this collection of eco poetry. But it was something organic that just grew out of my experience and my own engagement with a particular time and place. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that description about the wall and that imagery on the cover too, because I think that's something that coming out of, the whole situation with COVID, a lot of us can really relate to. So yeah, I love to hear about that. We have a question. This is another question for Juanet from Jessica. What was the significance of nature in your healing journey? I loved the little girl beneath my feet and the nature themes.
Oh boy. Nature has always kind of been a big deal to me. Ever since I was a kid, I was always outside. Whenever I felt like junk, I was outside. I was pretending I was making potions, with weeds on my picnic table. So for me, as I grew into adulthood and really lost myself when I started writing this, I was outside a lot. I just really found peace, and it really cleared my head to be able to sit outside and just write. And so nature became a real big part of my healing journey. And that's kind of why it's in the book. It's almost inadvertently in the book. It wasn't really, I don't want to say supposed to be, but it just kind of happened because I found so much just calm space within nature.
Yeah, I can imagine that wideness of nature and feeling that, and especially coming from that childhood background with it, I can definitely see how healing and helpful that would be. We have another question for everyone. This is from Dre, and I love this question. I always want to hear what people or writers say to this. But what is your general writing process like? Pen or pencil and paper, digital, something else, other necessities to your writing rituals. So maybe Dre, if you want to start us off with this one.
Sure. So for me, it's really funny because I think the only like specific that I have is that typically I'm listening to music when I create. Music is just a very like powerful source for me. And so it's something that's very great for tapping into the specific emotions I'm trying to capture or elicit, but also just like sometimes helping me clarify ideas, direction, or getting inspiration. But as far as like what I do specifically, man, I don't know. Today I might write on a pad. Tomorrow I might be typing on my phone or on my laptop. So it really just kind of depends on, I think, what's accessible when the ideas come, because that's usually what I default to. If I don't have anything physically with me, I usually always have my phone, and I'm quick to write something in my notes app.
Yeah, you got to keep everyone guessing with the process, right? Robin, how about you? Tell us about your writing process.
Okay, yeah, like Dre, music is a big part of it. In fact, anyone who comes past the office and sees me with headphones on, they will know she's writing, just leave her be. But I do start pen and paper, and usually start by free writing, then go back and start pulling out phrases and words that I like. And at a certain point, I don't know what causes this, I feel the need to go to the computer and start typing up the poem. But it's just sort of a tipping point, I suppose, of the handwriting. And then it's time to start actually formalizing the poem. And that's how I do it.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like you're listening to the internal voice, and when that's ready to move to the digital format. I love that. Lucie, how about you? What about your general writing process?
I think I would like to describe this in two different ways. First, as you might expect an eco poet to work in a very organic way, or just in a very traditional way, like pen and paper or pencil and paper. But actually, because I cannot sit still while I'm creating, or else my brain would stop. So I actually prefer to write with my iPad, because I can hold it and pace around, walk around, even just jump around or dance around while I'm typing on it. And that is for making my raw drafts, or sometimes when editing. But for me, editing is more of a contemplative, quieter process. And on the other hand, I guess I can describe my writing process like a kind of gardening, like starting seeds. Just make the environment suitable for growth. I would just attend to my life and let the words and sounds and images, ideas that coalesce around day-to-day experiences, be left in an environment that is suitable for their growth. And just like seeds, some would sprout, some would not. Some will grow to maturity, some will never get to be real poems. And when they do have the luck and the good fortune to be poems, I cherish them and lay them out in the garden beds and observe them grow. But there is also one poem or another that, you know, end up in the poem symmetry, where those that never get to be real poems end up. And I guess visiting that symmetry once in a while is also necessary for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this idea of being in motion while you're writing. I feel like it's something that not a lot of people necessarily think about when they think of writers, instead of just, you know, sitting in one place and writing for hours on end. But it's so necessary that, or at least I guess I should say for me also, that movement is so helpful. So I love to hear that. And Juanet, closing us out with this question, what is your general writing process like?
Very chaotic. I wish I could say I was able to stay in one spot, but I've always got a notebook. I actually just bought this one. I use the notes app on my phone. I've used napkins, I've used receipts. Generally, whatever just comes, I'm reaching for whatever is writable on, even if it's my own hand, because I'm sure everyone else can relate when I say, like, sometimes you have this wonderful thought in your head and you have nothing to write on and it's gone like that. It just happens sometimes. So for me, that's kind of how it goes. And then I bring everything into my writing room and I sit down with my laptop and I try to flesh it out. And sometimes I cringe, and then other times it goes into my laptop and it exists there until I decide that it is worthy enough for me to look at again. Because sometimes the things that come out are very much just, we're just going to leave it alone because it just needs to come out. But yeah, and then usually editing is, there's a little bit of music, a lot like Dre and Robin. But it's very humbling, the writing process, I think, as authors and poets, and no matter what you write, it's literally a piece of ourselves into the world, and it's very precious. So regardless of how anyone does it, as long as you're doing it, that's what matters. So
I'm pretty sure the cringe step of the process is both necessary and professional, so I definitely endorse that. But yeah, so I think that's about all we have time for the Q&A, but I just want to say thank you so much to Robin, Dre, Juanet, and Lucie for all of you sharing your words, your thoughts behind the words, these poems today. And thank you, of course, to everyone in the audience for being here with us to celebrate these poets. There was so much interesting and diverse language and themes to talk about and to listen to. So don't forget, of course, that you can order Become Echo, Crossroads, What She Knows, and Convivial Communiverse from the links in the chat. And then please also consider checking out atmospherepress.com to browse our new and forthcoming releases, to sign up for our email newsletter, or to submit a book manuscript of your own. You can feel free to submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com and let us know that you attended today's event. But until that point, we'll look forward to hearing from you, and that's it. So have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.